Good afternoon. My name is Tom. I run the UCoach website and now will be responsible for UCoach Share, and I'm also a voluntary athletics coach at Loughborough Students Athletics Club, where I fill what spare time I do have with coaching sprinters, jumpers, and now, under Derek's tuition, I will be helping out a bit with some throws as well, specifically in the hand. Okay, so today I wanted to present a multiple throws circuit called BOM, which is a circuit that was used by Dan Path. It comprises of 5 exercises: an overhead back throw, a between the legs forward throw, a hammer throw from the left hand side, a hammer throw from the right hand side, and a chest pass throw. And I'm not sure how many of you guys use multiple throws in your training, but Dan Path uses with every athlete, from sprinters to jumpers to throwers to endurance athletes. And 2 athletes that did this circuit recently in the last Olympic cycle were Greg Rutherford, who won a gold medal in the long jump, and Johnny Peacock, who won a gold medal in the 100 metres in the Paralympic Games. 2 athletes, quite different, but still using the same circuit. It's an excellent way to develop strength and power, and because you're using an implement, like a medicine ball or a shot put if you don't have any medicine balls, you can do it anywhere with any kind of athlete. So start with just some key points to do with throws. The first thing to think about throws, especially if you use them in a training context, is that throwing is done with the legs. Especially for training purposes, if you want to develop the glutes, the hamstrings, the real core power generating musculature. And think of it as a jump with an implement. If you're interested in Olympic weightlifting, throws are a great way of getting started before the athlete teaches the athlete Olympic weightlifting, because Olympic weightlifting is just jumping with a barbell. Force is transferred from the legs to the upper body and then finally into the implement. So that you've heard the idea of legs before arms in throwing. It's exactly the same with multiple throws. And the key thing that I'd like to put in here from a development perspective is that the lower back is not a prime mover. You can use the lower back when you're actually throwing in competition to add maybe a little bit more distance, but generally you want to avoid that in multiple throws, because there is some research that shows that the more flexion and extension that you have across an athlete's career is highly correlated with back injury and specifically disc injury. So if you're doing lots and lots of sit-ups, for example, and you've got an athlete that's prone to disc injury, it's a high chance that they will eventually become injured even from something as simple as doing sit-ups. Now, the way you know if you're using the back of the prime mover is if you see the athlete leaning right forwards. That's a really good indicator. So basically, when you're trying to do throws, you're trying to think about keeping the body upright, just as you do in a squat, a clean, or any other kind of activity. In terms of optimal angle of release, somewhere between 42 and 45 degrees tend to work best for throws and multiple throws. 45 degrees if you're firing a cannon from the floor, and around 42 degrees if you're throwing from upright above the surface of the ground. Another key point about throws is you always want to stay in double support. That means both legs on the floor as long as possible, so you can generate as much force. This is different to jumping or sprinting, where you might want to decrease ground contact time, and because of that, it's a good exercise for power. You heard Peter talk earlier about doing power exercises and doing plyometrics and trying to merge the two together. Well, multiple throws is a great way of developing power with young athletes. And finally, you always want to make sure you make use of the stretch shortening cycle. That is the system that Peter talked about earlier, where you stretch the muscle, there's an isometric phase, and then you contract the muscle, and you get a more powerful muscular contraction as a result of that. So I'm just going to talk you through the technique of these exercises and just talk through some key points. The first thing is, when you're doing exercise like this, you want to create a stretch shortening cycle. So I haven't quite captured the first frame, but the athlete starts with the medicine ball above their head. So as they drop, they're stretching all the musculature in their body, specifically their quads and their calves. You see the heels touch the floor? He's stretching his calves, he's storing elastic energy there, so you can then use that in the throw. The key thing about the throw is you want to get some horizontal force development. And the way to see how much vertical horizontal force development you do is you look at what's happening at the shins. Look at the shin angle. And you can see here the shin angle is pointing backwards maybe 30 degrees. And when you release the ball, you always want your arms to be at 90 degrees to your body, and therefore the ball will travel in the direction that your shins are pointing. Very simple. So here you've got the athlete, they're leaning backwards slightly, they're extending, nice straight triple extension, developing force from the hips, the knees, the ankles, into the ground. It's going into the medicine ball, and they're releasing the ball. In the second to last photo, you can see I've got an arrow pointing the athlete's back. If they were really using their back, they'd have a really big extension. I'm trying to minimise that when I see them throwing. So if you see an athlete doing that, they're probably leaning forward at the beginning, and they're probably doing this and overextending, overusing their back. You want to teach them to use their hips and their legs to throw. And finally, a landing. Between leg forward throw, almost identical, but now you're going from the front. Again, starting tall, so you get a nice stretch shortening cycle. Look at the angle of the shins. Doesn't that look like a shin angle in a block start? Perfect way of starting to develop an athlete's strength, but when they want to do blocks and a little bit older. Again, 90 degrees in the arms and releasing the ball, so you know the direction the ball's going. And because this athlete's a triple jumper, he always likes to do a leg shoot when he lands. But you get the basic idea. Some key technical points to look at. Exactly the same thing with the chest pass. Again, you start with the ball at your chest, you drop down to stretch that musculature. You look for that shin angle to be about 45 degrees. You look for beautiful triple extension and release the ball, and a nice, safe landing. Just to finish, something a little bit different. This is a hammer hip throw. Basically what happens is the athlete starts the ball, let's say at their right hip, they bend their legs, they turn, and they release the ball over their left shoulder in what you'd imagine to be a hammer release. This is some pictures from Dan Path's DVD. You can buy his DVD off the internet, and it has all the general strength circuits used with all his athletes. It's a great thing to start with if you haven't done circuit training before, you want to know a few different ideas for exercises. One key thing that I'm not a particularly big fan of in this picture is you see this athlete at the start, he's got quite a big ball that's quite heavy, so he's using his lower back a bit more, and you can see he's really bending forward, and that means he's more likely to use his lower back than his legs. It's a key thing to look for as a coach. I'd rather see more knee bend at the start, so he can really push with his legs rather than using his lower back as the prime mover. But you get the basic idea of the movement. And again, in the same position, you see he's bending forward a lot rather than using the legs. I'd like to see my athletes with more knee bend, and therefore be able to throw a little bit more with their legs. So there we have it. 5 exercises used by Dan Path. Anyone can use them. They can help your athlete go from beginner through to Olympic champion. And I hope those technical points will help you in your coaching. Thank you very much.